We'll move on from Penn State, Ohio State after this segment. We're going to talk to Steve Jones, play-by-play voice for Penn State Radio, on the Nittany Lions' chances of being able to get this game, because it feels like a lot of things are stacking up in their favor. But first, G-Mac, tell our listeners about the Pants Store.
Well, Pants Store is your game day headquarters to go and get things exactly how you want them. Free alterations and gift wrap are available. And as things start to cool off, they didn't cool off last night, that's for sure. As hot as can be here at 80 plus degrees on Halloween night, but they'll be here soon. You know it's going to cool off at some point. So go layer up at the Pants Store. They have you covered. All the best brands. They got you in the game day gear that you're looking for, the Auburn gear, the Bama gear. They got whatever you might need to go and enjoy game day. They also have the clear purses for the ladies, and they have shoes as well, and boots if you want to go in that direction as well. So zip on down to the Pants Store for all your game day needs.
All right, Alabama gets a commitment from four-star Parker defensive lineman Vodney Cleveland, 6'3", 205. So he commits there to Kalen DeBoer's staff, and another solid pickup for him in recruiting, as we're going to continue talking Ohio State and Penn State. Steve Jones, play-by-play voice of the Penn State Nittany Lions, joining us now on the Buyers Right Hotline. And Steve, we've been talking about a couple of different things that we think are beginning to roll into Penn State's favor in this game. When you look at the matchup, you think about historically what's it been. What feels most different to you about Penn State's opportunity this season as the last few?
Well, first of all, it's great to be with both you guys. You both have had great seasons, by the way. So what feels different is a couple of things. Number one, Penn State, I've felt over the years, has not been able to match up well interior against Ohio State with their defensive tackles. This group of defensive tackles led by Zane Durant and Devon Thomas have become difference makers in the Penn State defense, along with Kazai Izzard, Alonzo Ford, and Hakeem Beamon. I felt over the years Penn State, that was a matchup they weren't winning. They have a chance to at least be even, if not win it, with those guys this time through. The other part is Ohio State is a team, and my broadcast partner Jack Ham would know this better than anybody because he played against the Raiders all those years with Gene Upshaw and Art Shell. The Raiders were a predominant left-handed team. Ohio State has been a predominant left-handed team that has now lost its left tackle, and they've lost him for the season. They've also lost the backup left tackle as well. That could be something that Penn State would have an opportunity to potentially exploit in a game like this. Good team, no question. Howard's a terrific quarterback. Smith, I thought the USC receivers were the best foursome I'd seen all season. These three guys, Ibuka, Tate, and Smith, are better.
It is wild. Their personnel at wideout's excellent. The SCs, the variety that you get with the length and the speed, they're wild. They're just a good group for sure. But Penn State managed to climb back in that game and get a win. I do think this team's a little more resilient, but my thing that I keep going back to, Steve, is I just sit there and I look and I think Andy Kotelnicki was hired for one reason, and it was to beat Ohio State. And I think that his entire offseason was probably dedicated to finding a way to create an edge in this game by manufacturing some big plays. That's been a struggle for a while at Penn State. Hopefully it's not a struggle today. I think Aller can execute it. I think the line can block him. I think they can run it. But do they have the wideouts to be able to take advantage of this secondary that's a little questionable?
Yeah, it's a great question, Greg, because they've been able to get 6 100-yard receiving games this season from 4 different players. That's been a big plus. That's something they did not have last year. Trey Wallace has a 100-yard receiving game. Amari Evans has one. Liam Clifford has one. Of course, then there's Tyler Warren. So it's going to be, yes, the wide receivers are going to have to win some battles out there. There's no question. Because you go back 2 years ago in this game, Parker Washington had one of those 182-yard days, and Marvin Harrison had a 179-yard day. It was phenomenal wide receiver play by both teams. Penn State needs somebody to break out and have a really good game like you're talking about to help balance what they do with Warren. But the other part about the passing game, Greg, that's really important with this team, Nicholas Singleton, and you're going to relate to this because you've dealt with freshman players like this before, was a body catcher when he first got here as a running back, right? Now you watch him, Greg, and the hands are out front. and he's catching with confidence, and he's making plays in the pass game. So if you can get him out there and somebody downfield is covered, that's a guy you can check to with confidence you're going to get a play out of. So that does come into play with your wideouts.
Talking with Steve Jones, he is the play-by-play voice for Penn State football. We talked about Drew Allard, the health, the video that's out. None of us feel like it's going to be a massive concern, really. And I don't really lean on his legs anyway, Steve. But what do you expect from him, maybe from a health perspective? And just if he is limited, what does that do to this Penn State offense?
Well, Bo Pribula, of course, did a great job of coming into the game last week, and Bo's legs actually make the running game a little bit better, which you saw last week as well. I'll give Allard credit. When he's decided to run this year, Cole, he has done a good job. He's a good point A to point B guy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. But he's a good point A to point B guy, and he has good judgment on it. I mean, you even look at the game-winning field goal in overtime. He takes off, runs it, centers it right after gaining about 5 or 6 yards, and then slides, and then they come in and kick the field goal. So his judgment as to when to run and to be effective when he's running has been really good. I don't think that's going to be an issue. And his ability to throw the ball, he looks like a guy now that's made 20 starts in his career. And that's the big difference to me between the Drew Allard of last year and the Drew Allard of this year. He looks like a guy now that's made 20 starts and has seen the various speeds of defenses across the country.
It does look like he's a little more comfortable for sure. And I do think that his mobility, will I be looking at the left knee early? Of course. But I'm just not that scared of Ohio State's pass rush. And that's something I'm really curious about. I mean, did they ramp up the pressure? Did they try to blitz? Because if you look at their biggest game this year against Oregon, they brought half the time. It felt like they were bringing 5 or more. I don't know if they'll take that approach here, but is that the approach you would take when playing against Penn State, where Jim Knowles might call a bunch of pressures and see if he can't get home?
I would think I would try to do that, and try and make my corners or my safeties win the one-on-ones downfield that you and I talked about, Greg, because when you look at the Oregon game, what did Oregon do? The 2 tackles did a great job of taking Tuimoloau and Sawyer and pushing them out, like almost taking them in the direction they wanted to go. The problem Ohio State had in that game is that their interior offensive line did a great job of moving the 2 tackles wide, which then allowed Gabriel to step up and have a free lane to throw the ball. And that was an issue. You look at last week with Nebraska, those 2 tackles played a lot better because they were able to stay home, and Raiola could not step up and make plays. So they did make that adjustment. But if I'm with you, I'm expecting them to send pressure. And the guy I would think that they would send pressure with would be Cody Simon.
When you think about this Ohio State rushing attack, it feels like it's super capable, but has not necessarily got going to the level that we kind of expected it to. What do you expect from that in this matchup?
Well, obviously, I saw Judkins in the Peach Bowl, so I know how good he is. And I've seen Henderson for 3 years now, and I know how good he is. So in terms of the guys with the football, they're really, really good. The question is going to be, how do they solve what their issue is on the offensive line? Fryer's over there at that right tackle, and the 3 of us know that he's played 3 different positions. They've been trying to find a spot for him. So he's at the right tackle spot. It's going to be, how do they solve the left-hand side? Because as I said earlier, they have been a predominantly, 2/3 of the time, left-handed team, because they had Simmons over there with Jackson. That's a dynamite 1-2 punch. Well, there's no more Simmons over there anymore. And Jackson even had to fill in and play left tackle, and Mahalski went out last week. So I don't know how they're going to solve it, because they gained the 140 yards rushing against Oregon. Most of it was when Simmons was in the game, and it fell way off when he left. Then last week against Nebraska, they only had, 80 yards rushing in the game. So they actually have a couple of things with their running game they have to solve, even though they have ultra-talented backs in their backfield.
Finally, Steve, as we get you out of here with this, Look, it's frustrating to me that this game has to be played at noon. Like I'm just going to be honest. I want this game to be played at night. I've called a whiteout. I've been fortunate enough to be in attendance for that, but it was against Minnesota. I kind of wish, with all due respect to the Gophers, I just kind of think that whiteout belongs against Michigan or SC or whoever the big dogs are. And I know it only has to be at night. So it's a little bit frustrating, but does the game being kicked at noon have an impact in your eyes? Because I think it does. I'm just curious. You though, you've been around for a long time.
Okay. If Greg McElroy were speaking to the crowd at Beaver Stadium, he would be preaching to the choir. There'd be 110,000 people. Yeah, Greg, you tell them. The fans here are mad the game's at noon. Right now, they're going to be here in 110,000 in mass because there's nothing they can do about it. They didn't make the choice. But whiteout games should be at night, only because it just brings out the best. You did the game with Minnesota a couple of years ago. The atmosphere was great, but you and I both know, Greg, and Cole, you know the same thing. If it's Michigan, Ohio State, USC, Alabama played a whiteout game here as well, way back in 2011. It's different. Auburn played a whiteout game here. You want to ask the Auburn fans what it was like to come up here for that? They were wowed by it. So playing it at noon, yeah, okay. But Greg McElroy, you would be their hero.
I think most people would agree, Steve. We appreciate the time. It's going to be a fun one for you this weekend. Enjoy it, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Hey, Cole, Greg, the two of you have had phenomenal seasons. Good luck with your games this weekend.
Thank you very much. Same to you. There you go. Steve Jones, play-by-play voice for Penn State football. Going to be a fun one for him this weekend, even though most of us would agree. We would love to see that game at night, just like most people would love to see the inventory at Bromberg's.
Yeah, Bromberg's amazing. It's really the sales staff that goes above and beyond that really makes it that personal touch. It gives you that extra understanding of what you're purchasing, why you're purchasing, and how many generations this thing may last. It's really, really special when you walk in the door there and know that you're making a purchase that could be, worn or used by your great-grandchildren. It's really special. So go and check them out in Mountain Brook Village. You can also go see them at the Summit. It's really incredible. All the different things that they have in there, whether it's watches, giftware, you name it, they got it. So go and check them out, one of those two locations, or you can always shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, when we come back, what is Clark Lea's main concern with Auburn this weekend? You'll hear from him right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubalik in the morning, 8:37 a.m. Friday, November 1st, Shocks 94.5. Going to roll into a few more SEC games, begin to discuss a few of those as we come off a discussion of Ohio State, Penn State for a while. Appreciate Steve Jones hopping in on the Buyers Right hotline. Clark Lea has a concern with this Auburn football team, but also feels like he has a plan on how to stop said concern.
Well, I think he's probably the best running back we've faced. He made us pay a year ago too. He's got a combination of the patience, really good feet in the hole, and makes decisions to the ball, a quick cut, and gets vertical. He's also a guy that runs behind his pads really well and seems to run through contact and bounce off tackles. So he's kind of the complete package now. I mean, there's not, I don't see any holes in his game. They do a really nice job featuring him. So how do we prepare? Obviously, we're spending a lot of time on tackling fundamentals and talking about the need to finish on body to have a chance to down him. And then we're trying to do the best we can to design structures that leverage the ball.
So that's Clark Lea on Jarquez Hunter, GMAC. And I think we would all agree something that they're going to have take place, at least limit him, not allow him to just get going to the extent that he did a week ago if Vanderbilt's going to win this football game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's imperative that you keep him contained. There's no denying. I mean, he is the best attribute of what Auburn tries to do offensively. I think if you can cloud the picture, though, too, with some of the RPO stuff and make things a little bit indecisive, that will be beneficial as well, because Auburn's going to run their RPOs. Like, they're going to run their offense. And if you can maybe show a handoff look with two high safeties and then spin down super late right as the ball goes into the belly of the back, then you have a chance, I think, to maybe confuse Peyton Thorne in his post-snap recognition. So that also, I think, from a structure standpoint, is huge. Like, getting him on the ground's tough, leveraging the football's tough, all that's tough, but the RPOs add an extra layer of complication that is not always easy to defend.
No, I would agree with that. So you think about this Auburn offensive game plan. You talked earlier in the week about, man, they ran the ball well, but those RPOs were still there. It's not like it was just a bunch of call it and run it. If you're Vanderbilt, Greg, do you try to sort of force? I mean, this sounds crazy to a lot of people, I would assume, but if you've watched a lot of Auburn, maybe it doesn't. Do you almost kind of give the throws off of the RPO game? You go back to the Missouri game, and Hugh Freeze talked afterwards, said, yeah, they took the throws away in the RPO, so it made it a little bit more difficult. Do you almost try to give them some of the intermediate RPO throws just so Jarquez Hunter from Auburn's option doesn't get the football? Like, make them choose to not give him the football.
Yes, I think that's what you do. I mean, I think you make it look like pass and then drop back and vice versa, depending on down and distance and where they're out on the field. I would stuff the box completely. And there were 3 or 4 different call it and run it's last week that I hadn't really seen. Some of it's like the off tackle pin and pull stuff, which I like a lot. I think that's an area like you're kind of trying to exploit the alleys there a little bit. Like, it's not a wide hitting play. It's more off tackle. It's a little more downhill. That's one where I think you can continue to run that play. That's a good call it and run it. You just got to make sure you run it away from rotation. So that's something. I mean, if I were them, I would spin rotate my safety down to that side, whatever side the tight end's on or whatever side they're trying to hit, or at least you can kind of get a feel for it early in the game. I would rotate in that direction. So it was into the boundary most of the time last week. I would maybe try to spin into the boundary and see if you can knock them in the face a couple times with an unblocked guy. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting because some of the numbers in this game are just, I mean, we've talked about Auburn with the turnovers and Vanderbilt kind of taking care of the football. Vanderbilt scored 20 points in 8 straight games, longest single season streak since 2013. Also tied for the longest active streak in FBS. LSU, the only other SEC school with an 8-game streak or longer. Diego Pavia, 116 pass yards per game on throws of 10 yards or fewer through the air. So that's 5th most among SEC quarterbacks. So the intermediate stuff, the quick stuff, which that would say, Greg, that's a lot of your read throws, your pop passes, your quick throws, your sprint outs, those kind of things, which he's really good at. But Auburn's defense has been great at defending passes of 10 yards or fewer this season. 88 per game is what they allowed. That's tied for third fewest in the SEC. So that's another one to watch. If Auburn can be good against the intermediate throws, those quick throws, some people would say your higher percentage or your easier throws for Diego Pavia, they probably have a much better chance of being successful in this game because that's where he needs to live, Greg. He can't live in the drop back game. That's just not who they are.
No, absolutely not. That's not who they are at all. I mean, it's going to have to be on the move. It's going to have to be, off play action. It's going to have to be a little RPO. It's going to have to be some catch and run stuff. And they're going to have to challenge downfield probably 3 or 4 times. That's the play. I mean, all that stuff. And the thing about Vanderbilt is they get off on confusion. This is a pretty good defense from a sound standpoint. Like there's not a lot of busts in this defense. They don't do much. I mean, it's pretty simple. What you see is what you get. You just have a bunch of guys that play their tails off and play extremely hard. So the personnel advantage is not as significant as Vanderbilt will usually face, but the level of execution is probably slightly better than you've seen at times this year. So we'll see how they handle it, but I'll be curious to see what exactly this Auburn defensive staff decide to take away. Do they try to sell out against the run, or do they try to keep everything in front of them? Yeah. That's going to be really interesting.
I think you play up, and I think you try to force some confusion. You have to have a little bit of penetration disruption. I know you have to play sound against the read game, but I try to, like we talked about, Eugene Asante kind of being that guy. Like cut him loose, let him go, and try to be the one that forces an early read. You've got to change what you do against the mesh. Let Keldrick fall, crash the mesh, let him slow play it, replace defenders out there. That's what Pete Kwiatkowski told me last week. He said, we're going to play more 3 down because that gives us options outside the tackle box to be able to say, okay, we're going to flash a linebacker down as the in-man on the line of scrimmage. We're going to widen that end out at the snap. He's going to become the in-man on the line of scrimmage. They want to force misreads by Diego Pavia, and he's seen all of it. He knows it, but it's just when you have the athleticism Texas had, you feel really good about making that a problem. Auburn has some of that, and we've talked about it with Kieron Crawford. Jalen McLeod, I think they can be guys that you utilize. DJ Durkin can put outside and have them crash the mesh, play off the ball, play flat on the line of scrimmage because they're athletic enough and just strong enough to be able to handle that. This is not the strongest group up front as far as the offensive tackles and tight ends that are just going to bull you. Now, you get a Cole Spence in the game for Vanderbilt at tight end. He can push you around some. He's a guy that gives you great effort in the blocking game. So, and they've got 2 fullbacks that they play. One's like 6'3", 245. I mean, he looks a lot like a Robbie Utes, kind of how he plays and operates. The other one, a little bit undersized, just hard hat effort guy. And that's 44 and 45. So they'll have some options to be able to try and offset it. But I like McLeod and Crawford to be those guys that can sort of mix it up out there in the C gap.
I'm great with that. I mean, I think that's kind of going to be where it's going to be won. It's right there on the edges. That's what
Brad White told us.
Edges,
we had him against Kentucky, Greg. Brad White said this game will be won in the C gap. That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, it's one on the edges, it's one in the alley. I mean, it's triple option principle football with some of their shovel stuff, with some of their underneath stuff, with some of their read and rip stuff. Like that's kind of where it's at. I mean, it's the same offense that's been run forever. It's just a slightly different presentation.
Yeah.
And it's always tough because of how hard Diego Pavia is running off tackle. When he gets outside, like he's hard to bring down. He runs hard and he falls forward. So even if you trip him up at the line of scrimmage, he's going to fall forward for 4 yards. I mean, the guy just seemingly always seems to fall forward. So that's going to be something worth watching too. I think getting them off schedule, if you can get them in 3rd and longs, they're toast.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
But that's a real challenge to do that.
One other thing quickly, I think this will be massive in this game. This is really small, really tedious, really minute. Diego Pavia ball fakes. Just keep your eye on that. He is a master of getting defenders off the ground and turning what could have been a throwaway or a sack or maybe a play where he kind of forces something like he did late against Texas to a 6-yard gain for a first down or an 8-yard gain for a first down or a 4-yard gain. Like he is just masterful at, because he gives you that big full ball fake. Like it looks like a full throw. And then at the last second, he just holds it and tucks it down and runs. And he had, I mean, I told you guys the story of one of his defenders when we met with him. We asked him like when he knew he was the real deal. And he said Diego was rolling out and in practice, and he had one of our ends one-on-one, and he gives him this massive ball fake, and the guy jumps, and they literally heard Pavia at that moment say, dumbass, and then just kept running like right live football. So he's like, we knew he was a dude when that took place. So he's just good at it. And then back to that Vanderbilt defense, like you said, Greg, the explosives. There's only 3 teams in the SEC that have given up more plays of 30 yards or more this year. Tennessee, Texas, and Ole Miss have given up fewer. Vanderbilt's given up 10 all year. So that is an area that they've been pretty good at. Like you said, they play sound. They're not going to be lost out of their gaps very often. So you're going to have to earn a lot of the yards against this team. But physically, some teams have been able to do that. All things are going to be interesting to watch. I went Auburn in this game, 24-21. I think it's closer and a little bit lower scoring than people think. You're going Vanderbilt. You said earlier in the week.
No.
You're like Pavia. Did he not say Pavia on Monday?
I'm going to go. Oh, I got to gas you up on Monday. I'm gonna go Auburn. I think Auburn actually wins and covers. I'm thinking like 31, 34. No, it's gonna be lower scoring than that. I'll say 24-14.
Okay, 24-14. John?
Vandy wins easily.
Easily?
Yeah.
Got him.
So you're saying Vandy in sort of like a blowout fashion?
Well, no, I mean it's not going to be like
you think it's comfortable
58-19 or something like that.
Yeah.
No, but I expect this to be like it probably may end up being like a
like
10.
Auburn's not going to have the ball with a chance to win late, is what you're saying.
No.
All right. Damian?
I got Auburn 28-17.
Okay. All right. So, John, the lone person on the show going with Vanderbilt this weekend. There's not one person on the show that has gone to Backyard Adventures and had them come to their home and take care of them. They've put a playground together in my backyard. We got the basketball goal from Backyard Adventures. G-Max got the basketball goal. Go to Cahaba Valley Road. See it all assembled right now. Kids can play on it, decide what you want, then they'll customize it. And the best part is they come install all of it, whether it's basketball goal, playground, any of it. Backyard Adventures does all the work, and they're going to maintain it. They'll come out. It's warranted. They'll take care of it if something does happen. You can't beat it, GMAC. Get them to come out to your home and help you with either a basketball goal or a playground.
Yeah, I've had an amazing experience. It's really been terrific. I know you guys will have the exact same experience as well. You're going to love everything that you get to experience when you go to Backyard Adventures. You can see them off Cobb Valley Road. The basketball goal is what we've gone with. It's been terrific investment in our family. We've spent more time together outside as a result. I know you guys will have a similar experience. So go and see them off Cobb Valley Road, or you can go online at backyardalabama.com.
All right, tease this one a little bit earlier. One thing that I think should be of great concern for Ole Miss against Arkansas, and why the Rebels should probably be on upset alert this weekend in Fayetteville. We'll discuss that one next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, chance for you to get in if you want to talk any games from the weekend. We're going to continue Max Ball. 800-239-9569. Questions you may have, thoughts you may have on games coming up this weekend. Maybe just a prediction that you want to try to make on where a certain game is going to go, what it's going to look like, where you think we are wrong on our picks or our games. Some games coming up in state this weekend. Damien, you'll be on the call for 3-5 Wofford at 3-4 Samford. That's 2:00 on ESPN Plus. You feel good about Samford being able to bounce back in this one?
Yeah, they just got to avoid the turnover bug. That's the biggest thing. In the losses that they've had, they lost the turnover battle, and that's in the SoCon, you can't do that. But I feel good about them getting right, especially for homecoming this weekend.
Also 2:00 ESPN Plus. 4-4 Southern is at 3-4 Alabama A&M. There at Lewis Cruz Stadium. Austin P at UNA, 3-5 and 3-6, 4:00 on ESPNU. Also 4:00 ESPNU, 4-3 Alabama State is visiting 4-4 Alcorn State. 1:30 ESPN Plus. You're going to get 3-5 Tulsa right here in Birmingham against 1-6 UAB. 3:00 ESPN Plus. 4-3 Coastal visits 1-7 Troy. 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night, you get 5-3 Georgia Southern at 4-4 South Alabama. Before we move on, going to have to wait for us to get into that Arkansas Ole Miss game. But one thing you never have to wait for, GMAC, is your dental care.
That's because Family Care Dental has you taken care of. They're the urgent care office where you can be seen the same day. You can get that immediate help. They're also open on Fridays and Saturdays, and we know it's really hard to make appointments. When you're trying to schedule dental appointments, it's impossible. You don't have to be stressed out when you have Family Care Dental. They have 5 locations now for you: Hoover, Fultondale, Homewood, and Alabaster, but they're now open in Trustful as well. Call them for an appointment at 874-9605. That's 874-9605.
Do you guys think there are a lot of folks that believe that this could be a dangerous game for Ole Miss? I haven't heard a lot of buzz about be careful Ole Miss or be on your P's and Q's. I feel like this is a lot of people just feel like Ole Miss probably handles this game.
Why do people not think this is a dangerous game? I think this is super dangerous.
Where do you think the vibe is? I think it's beyond dangerous. So you look at the part that I think a lot of people want to pay attention to. Ole Miss, 11 points per game this year, fewest in the FBS, second in sacks, third in yards per play allowed, behind only Tennessee and Texas. That's not where I think this game is dangerous. The Ole Miss offensive line is about to face a front seven that can flat out get after you. Landon Jackson and company can get to the quarterback. They can penetrate against the run. They have linebackers who can fly. That's where, Greg, I think this game is most dangerous for Ole Miss heading into the weekend.
Yeah, it's hard to push back on that. I mean, I think this is a very dangerous game and the look-ahead possibility. How often did Lane Kiffin bring up Georgia this offseason?
That's a great point. We'll talk more about it.
How many times did he bring up Arkansas?
Welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning, hour number 3. We still have our Super Sofa Game of the Weeks coming up. We also have Bad Box Score of the Day coming up later this hour, but you can be a part of the show, 800-239-9569. If you have anything college football-wise from the weekend that you would like to discuss. You can also text into the show, 205-834-9450. Interested in where folks are on Auburn and Vanderbilt. Interested where folks are on Ohio State, Penn State. Most of us think Penn State finally gets it done this weekend. Do you believe that as well? Another game that we were just referencing that doesn't feel like a lot of people are maybe up to speed enough on as to how dangerous it could be. I mean, Ole Miss still in the playoff hunt. You look at the ESPN analytics right now, they give Ole Miss a 19% chance, the All-State playoff predictor does, to make the college football playoff. We know what lies ahead. As Greg said, that could be a big problem. It's sort of that look ahead for Ole Miss. Thinking about Georgia, Braylon Russell, big physical freshman running back for Arkansas, got going last week, 175 yards. I'm interested to see, Greg, if they try to go a little bit bigger, a little more physical, like that full hog come out for Arkansas this week to see, all right, Ole Miss, do you like playing that style football game? You know, do you like being that kind of a team? And just to what extent they might be able to make that go.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not Ole Miss, you already kind of reference it, can Ole Miss block them? That's the question, number one. Number two, Ole Miss has been one of the best teams in the country stopping the run. They've been really good. Statistically speaking, I think they're still number one in the country against the run. I think their secondary is great too. Like, I think Ole Miss has a decided advantage over Arkansas with their defense on the field most weeks. But the problem is you run into the Arkansas offense that played last week, you got problems. Like, look out, because that group and Taylor Green's confidence and the ball placement on a few throws and some of the weapons getting going and having the defense on their heel most of the day, like, that was a different looking offense. And if they can keep that up, look out. I mean, that is not a type of team that you want to be messing around with.
No, I would agree. All right, so do we think Arkansas gets this one done? They can be problematic up front on defense. We've mentioned that. Jackson Dart looking for his school record 13th 300-yard passing game. He is currently tied with Chad Kelly and Jordan Teamu for the most 300-yard passing games in school history. Trey Harris, they get him back. How does he look? Is he healthy? Can he be what we saw earlier in the season? Taylor Green, can he continue doing what he did last week? 5 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. Second player in school history, joining the late Ryan Mallett as the only other player in Arkansas history to be able to do that. So it feels like there's a lot of different ways that this one can go. Ole Miss obviously has the better football team all in all, and it does, I feel like, depend on which Arkansas team we kind of get. But I like the different styles that Arkansas can play. I have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to pull this one off. We don't think that there's not maybe a little bit of look ahead for the Razorbacks either, is what's left ahead on their schedule. Texas coming to town next week is a massive one. I just don't think they're in a spot to even think that way.
Is that next week? No, that's 2 weeks.
Well, off week before, but next game. Yes. Sorry, next game that they play.
You're good.
And as we know, a lot of guys do look ahead to the bye week. I mean, you want that time off. You're ready to get a little bit of a break. I don't know, man. I think Arkansas gets this done. I think Arkansas finds a way to run the ball, slow the game down. I think they're disruptive up front. Every team Ole Miss has played has been disruptive up front. I think Arkansas has the bodies to be able to do it, and I think the Hogs get the win.
I'm going Ole Miss still. I think it's going to be tight. I think Ole Miss's defense will play well. I feel real confident in that. I think you're going to catch Arkansas on the wrong day sometimes, and they're just going to be right. What we saw last week was the anomaly performance. Most of the time, Arkansas has shot themselves in the foot. They've made mistakes. They've fumbled it. Taylor Green passes up open receivers from time to time. Like, you get him dialed in, yeah, you're in trouble. But I think Ole Miss is a team that will definitely match in personnel on the perimeter. I think they can cover. I think the linebackers will fluster and frustrate Taylor Green all night long. And I think they'll drop him and get him behind the sticks a couple times with some timely pressures called by Pete Golding. So I'm going Ole Miss, but I think it's going to be tight and one that could go down to the wire. In a low-scoring game.
Okay, lower scoring than people think. Damian, Arkansas, Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think it'll be a lower scoring game, but I'm going Arkansas, man. If they make it the fist fight that I think it could be, I'm going to lean more towards Taylor Green just making some explosives with his legs they're going to work, man. I think Arkansas gets them.
You're a little concerned about the edge presence that Ole Miss brings. 3 pretty legit edge defenders that can get to the quarterback. Arkansas's tackles haven't been great, but I like the fact that they can widen the pocket with tight end usage. I thought Bobby did a great job hiding the tight ends last week and then use them in the passing game. That could be big for this team as well. John, Ole Miss at Arkansas, 11 a.m.
Ole Miss gets the win. I think it plays out similar to the Oklahoma game last week in that it's going to be close, kind of back and forth, but I think late Ole Miss is able to find a way to actually kind of good it out because of what happened last week. I thought they felt that they could have waltzed right in, and Oklahoma took it to them. And they had to come out and actually realize, it's actually going to take some work and effort to win. And I think that's going to carry over to this week, and that, they'll struggle. It'll be kind of a back and forth game. I do think a low scoring, but no one will really pull away until the end when Ole Miss does.
All right, total 53.5 in that game. So are we saying under that with everybody thinking lower scoring?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because 27-24 would be an under. So, yeah.
All right. So, most of us think play the under in that one. A couple of us like Arkansas. And if you're catching 7.5, go ahead. It looks pretty good for a lot of folks. Also looking good could be a new home. Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group would like to help you get there. 205-542-1996. Go to GustyGoulasGroup.com. See everything that they can do for you. You can just Google Gusty Goulas Group. You'll see over 835-star Google reviews. Gusty Goulas Group, brokered by eXp Realty, served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. He's putting that technology to use. You go to your phone right now, go to GustyGoulasGroup.com. Button at the top of the page, very little information. You find out exactly what your home value is right this second by going to GustyGoulasGroup.com. He invests thousands in the latest tools, marketing, research, development, technology to help better serve all of his clients to get into a new home or get their home sold for top dollar. 205-542-1996 or go to GustyGoulasGroup.com.
I got a question about Ole Miss's offense. Primarily Ulysses Bentley. Why do you think the workload for him has gone down so much?
I think they still have confidence in him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you have a guy that probably has also a pretty good feel of that offense that I think is, from what I've watched this year, appears to be a little bit more dynamic, has a little bit more juice. So I just think Henry Parrish has a little extra burst. And maybe a little better feel for some of the zone stuff, which I know Lane's wanted to get back to more of for a while. If you watched last week, they put in sort of this it was like a new same side counter step zone play where the back shows like a counter step, but he's to the right and they run inside zone to the right. Like they had a couple new wrinkles in some of their run scheme last week. I just think Parrish he manages it better. But I didn't expect Bentley to go this far away. So you wonder something behind the scenes. I don't know. Greg, is there anything that you have that leads you to believe that this is the main reason Bentley's not getting a little bit more run?
Well, I think Parrish is better, first and foremost. I think you've already assessed that. I think Parrish has better feel kind of up inside and on the perimeter. I also think he's better. I think he's really tried hard to be better in pass pro because that was an area of weakness for a long time. I'm not saying he's great at it, but he's improved for sure. I think there's some attitude there. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I asked him specifically that question when we did their game against, who was it again? Oh, Kentucky.
Yeah, the Kentucky game.
Yeah. So had him at LSU too, but already had the answer at that point. I asked him, where's Ulysses gone? And we saw him a little more against LSU. But I think that he probably wasn't thrilled with being number 2 on the depth chart when it was anticipated him being number 1. And maybe he didn't handle it well. I really don't know. All I know is that I think Parrish is better. Mm-hmm. So every time you hand it to Bentley in favor of Parrish, you're probably costing yourself as far as EPA is concerned.
Yeah, I think but here's the other part. This was going to be a problem. They signed too many running backs. You brought in Dominique Thompson. You brought in Rashard Amos. You brought in Henry Parrish. You had Ulysses Bentley, Matt Jones. Someone was going to be left out in this mix. They just were. And Henry Parrish, I feel like, he's been dynamic in this system before and has a better feel for it. So we'll see exactly how Ole Miss plans to offset that. I'll say this because we mentioned Landon Jackson. We mentioned like Nico Davier, Cam Ball, Eric Gregory, some of those guys on that defensive line. for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Big game for Caden Priestcorn and Daquan Wright. I think sort of widening those guys out a little bit, using those tight ends to get in the way some, maybe slow down some of the pass rush. And then the intermediate game, Charlie Weiss Jr. was great dialing up some of the intermediate throws to tight ends last week because they were taking hits. And that's an aggressive defense they played. But those guys were big in that game last week, and I think they're going to have to be big in this one specifically if you don't have Trey Harris back. So, all right, we'll continue rolling through Max Ball. I brought up Duke at Miami a little bit earlier, Greg. Is that one that you have any real fear for? I mean, Miami's a 20-point favorite in this game. There's
too many.
Not a ton of reasons that people should look at it on paper and say, well, no. But, I mean, this Duke team just they feel like they play a pretty gritty style of football. You have a quarterback that's capable of making plays. I mean, Malik Murphy has been pretty clean this year, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You have the ability to run the ball with Star Thomas. I feel like if they can turn this into a bit of a contrast in style game, even from an attitude perspective, Miami, there are parts of their team that sort of live on the edge a little bit. Can Duke take advantage of that and even keep this one tight?
Yes. And I also think Duke can turn them over. That's the big problem. I mean, Duke turned over SMU 6 times last week. I mean, they're pretty opportunistic, and Manny Diaz is going to create some havoc. But last week, if you go back and watch that game, Duke played a lot of coverage. They didn't really heat them up the way they've done it in the past. I mean, if you look at Manny Diaz, like he wants to heat you up, he wants to blitz you. He played a lot of coverage and just let Kevin Jennings for SMU make mistakes. Is that the same approach that he takes to playing Cam Ward? Probably. Isn't that how you would play Cam Ward?
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to dictate, like I'd just kind of let him throw it to us. And they're going to have some creativity. And don't think for a second Manny Diaz hasn't had this one circled all offseason. The opportunity to get his former team, the guy that he was fired in favor of, when Manny, frankly, didn't do a very bad job. I mean, Manny was 21-15 and had that thing feeling like it was trending in the right direction. And they just felt like they needed to upgrade at the head coaching spot. And they did. They went and got Mario Cristobal, who's great. But you don't think Manny's not mad about that? His hometown team that fired him? Yeah, I think he's going to have his boys ready to
go. They're going to drop one of these. I just believe it in my heart that Miami will drop one before the season's over. I also think coming off the emotional high that was not only playing Florida State, but smashing Florida State, can you regurgitate that this weekend, especially at 11 a.m. in front of an empty house? Because we all believe that most likely it's mostly going to be empty. So I think this is the week that it happens. I think Duke plus 12, Miami plus 4 in the turnovers, like Greg said. And then a team that just physically can match up. Athletically cannot. Physically can. And if he can continue to mix up the coverage, the pressures, the simulators, the things like you said, Greg, against Cam Ward and maybe force him to get into a little bit of a turnover issue, which he has not this year. He's been pretty good with it. I think Duke finds a way to get this one done. Damian?
I think Miami's going to get him.
Yeah, nobody's jumping on board with me on this.
Nah.
Fine. Cam Ward's got 5 picks all year. That's fine. John?
I do think you're right in that Miami slips up. I just don't think it's this week.
You think it's Georgia Tech, of course.
Well, no.
Next week on the road.
I hadn't looked at their schedule.
Wake.
Yeah, obviously it's Wake. Yeah, that'll be the one. You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Syracuse is the most.
It's probably
likely.
at Syracuse if it's going to happen.
I mean, they got
It's
UNLV.
not this one. We'll see. All right, GMAC, you say tight, but Duke doesn't actually get this one done.
No, they don't get it done, but it'll be. I'd take Duke in the points. 3 touchdowns. I mean, all day long, I'm taking the points.
Okay. Before we go to break quickly, some uniform discussion. I feel like we need to have. Have we seen these Army uniforms?
No. Good.
Oh, the Army helmets. Yeah, you've got to find those. It's unbelievable. The skull helmet that they're going to wear against Air Force this weekend. It is impressive. Ooh. Yeah, it's on point. That's going to be a good look. Army football wins that. Have we seen the Oklahoma State throwbacks?
Mm-mm.
No. Are they good?
Uh-oh.
We're going to need to get both these out from the Mac and Cube account. I need you to decide because this is very similar to, well, I'm not going to say exactly similar, but this is like along the same lines of like the Steelers Bumblebees. So yeah, not to that extent, But I'm going to need to know what folks think about the Oklahoma State throwbacks, and if you're okay with those. Just let me know where we are on that, because it's for me it's a no go. If the sleeves and the socks are part of it,
right? That's what I was.
That's what I need. I don't know if everyone is going to go with these sleeves and these socks. I'm assuming they'll all go with the socks, but the sleeves will be optional. It's not the worst, but it's right. It's a bit much. With the sleeves and the socks, it's a bit much.
Do you have a singular link where I can see all of these next to each other?
Yeah, it's in the thread.
Okay, John just texted them, so you'll be able to see.
Perfect.
So we'll take a look at those. We'll get those posted from Mac and
These
Q.
Oklahoma States are
right.
It's a lot. They're up there. They're up there. If you're dealing with a lot health wise, Game Day Men's Health wants to help you. They're here to do that, and you don't have to worry about what the uniform is going to look like there, because it is a clean, nice, friendly locker room environment. Not going to try to push you into any of the services that they have that you don't want or you don't feel like you need. But what they can do when you go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, gives you a free consultation set up. Because if you lack energy, poor sleep, feeling on edge, could be the effects of low testosterone, that free consultation is going to include a free testosterone test and a free PSA test. You're going to get a baseline health-wise of where you are right this second. Weight loss programs, they can help you with that right there at Game Day Men's Health. A lot of different services that they have to help you feel better or just be better in your daily routine. And you can save 10% on any of those services by mentioning Cube when you walk in the front door. But walk in the front door with that free consultation already set up at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Minimal upfront costs for all those programs that they offer. That's very different than other health clinics around Birmingham. Book that free consultation today at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. All right, when we come back, we will decide, do we give a thumbs up or thumbs down to those uniforms, and talk more college football right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning, Friday, November 1st, 9:20 a.m. on Jocks 94.5. Super Sofa games of the week coming up in a few moments. Bad box scores of the day. We get back to basics. Bad box scores of the day. Some OG bad box score of the day. And one all-timer from a certain standpoint that we will get to later in the show.
Oh, boy.
So stick around for that one. And I think you will like what you see, like what you hear. Okay, we've had a chance to look these over. Oklahoma State uniforms, in, out.
Out.
You say no go.
Out.
Trip Tepper tweets in, burn those Oklahoma State throwbacks.
Those are brutal.
It's not a good look.
Jeffrey Solon says, yay, they're fire. I do think without the sleeves and the socks, they're fine.
Right.
Well, that's the whole thing, though.
The socks they're going to make, the socks they're all going to have on, but in just the socks might be okay, but sleeve socks together, that's a lot. That's a no-go for me. Great for Halloween. Why are we going with the Avengers logo? Do we know what that means? Interlocking OA on helmet serves as official letter and emblem of the OA Association, organized October 1909 by the athletes of Oklahoma A&M College. Okay. There it is.
I was going to say, it's an ag school, so I thought maybe it'd be ag related. So that makes sense.
Okay. All right. John, in or out on those?
Oh, I'm way out.
Way out.
The
Okay.
temperature tomorrow at game time will be in the mid 60s. So there's no need for these sleeves.
At all.
No.
At all.
Tell DBs and receivers that.
Iverson does not
Unless
want.
he played for Jimbo.
Oh, sure.
That's under 60.
Yeah.
No. That's under 75, and it's sleeve and sock weather for y'all. We all know that. And under 60 would be ski mask season for you guys.
Shiesties.
Get it way down there.
In fairness, the best
Gucci?
offensive lineman in the world wears sleeves every week. Trent Williams.
Yeah, but
So-
that's not.
Oh,
like
It's for swag. It's to
it
look
is.
good.
Yeah, 100%.
number one.
Yeah, but he backs
number
it up.
one in the power ranking.
The Army helmets, though, we're all in on those, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's a lock.
1,000%.
I actually like
I
it
do
in
worry
the
a little
rain.
bit about, like, they look great in person and up close. I wonder how they'll look from a distance.
Yeah, you're not really going to be able to tell.
You're not gonna. I hope that there's enough contrast to be able to get full appreciation because those are sweet.
Oregon at Michigan, 2:30 CBS. You can also, I guess, watch it on Paramount Plus for some reason if you needed to. Oregon, number one team of the nation, 8-0. Michigan, 5-3. Struggling offensively, struggling from a quarterback perspective. Can they do enough up front defensively? I worry about them down the field in this game. You've talked about Oregon's dedication to throwing the deep ball, Greg, and it's something that they've been really good at. Can Michigan kind of muck this game up enough, complicate this game enough to keep it tight, maybe find a way to pull the upset at home, which you've told us before, it's not what you think. It's a lot of people, but it's not super intimidating.
No.
Can they find a way to make any of it enough to be able to pull this upset?
No, unless their defensive tackles completely take over the game and pressure Dylan Gabriel right up the middle, I don't see it happening. But I do think guard to guard Oregon is human. I'm not saying they're vulnerable there. I do think guard to guard, though, if you're going to get them, that's where you get them. Do you see it the same way with their offensive line?
Yes, and I also think Dylan Gabriel more susceptible to middle pressure, to denting the pocket, because not the tallest quarterback, and he loves to step up and throw the ball. So if you can do what you stated, I think it can maybe affect him a little bit more than it might affect a lot of other quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little guy, and he's not out. He doesn't have like a howitzer. You know, he needs some forward momentum to push it downfield. I don't really love Michigan's cover guys. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, Will Johnson's game time, he hasn't been great this year. He's had some good moments. He's jumped a couple routes and has a couple pick sixes. But as far as like down in, down out coverage, it hasn't been great. So even if he goes, the other side's a liability. So I think you got problems in the back end. It really comes down to whether or not, I mean, Michigan's going to have to force Gabriel to feel uncomfortable up the middle. And if they can't, they're going to get lit up. So I like Oregon here. I think Oregon will do enough slide protection. I know you hate it.
Oh boy.
But you gotta help those. You absolutely have to help those guards in this game. I think that's going to be a real problem for them. So they'll do some slide protection just to help them out. And if they get beat on the edge, at least Gabriel can see it.
Get it
But
out.
that's what I anticipate.
No, it makes sense. I'm with you. I don't. Anybody think Michigan pulls this one off? Is anybody ready to go there?
Okay. No.
Good. Got it. All right,
I would love it. I think it'd be a great story. Just to create a little more chaos in the Big Ten, but I don't think it's likely at all. I mean, I think you got a much better chance of Oregon losing. Against Ohio State, obviously, but I mean, if they were to catch a team like Indiana, I think there's a chance, but I don't see this one.
Do you want that chaos or the 3 undefeated teams at the end of the year chaos?
I think that chaos works itself out. That's only chaotic for the Big Ten title game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because then you have the number 1 seed, whoever wins that game. I think that's done.
Right.
And then the team who does not play in that game is vying for the 5 or the 6. And depending on who wins and loses, is also vying for the 5 or the 6. So I don't think it forces a whole lot of chaos other than the Big Ten title game. Like same thing in the ACC. But it would be interesting to see kind of how it worked out. But I would prefer Greg's chaos if that's what you want, because that's where it's going to be more in and out discussions
season-long chaos,
than where you're seated discussions and who actually plays in a title game that all 3 are going to believe that they should be playing in. All right, let's go Georgia, Florida. We haven't spent a lot of time on this one. This is one maybe even more so than Ole Miss and Arkansas that nobody thinks can be competitive, probably because it hasn't been competitive. Georgia's won the last 3 by at least 20 or more. So we haven't seen a competitive Georgia-Florida game in quite some time. Georgia's a 14.5-point favorite. That thing's moved a lot, right, Greg? That's
it was
kind of weird.
16.5. I believe it was like 17 super early, and then it became 16.5, and now it's down to it is 14.5 in some places. So I'd say it's steaming in one direction. It's pretty significant too.
Florida 4-3, Georgia 6-1. It feels like Florida has a couple of new things that are working. Georgia still has some issues that need to be worked out. I guess my first question would be, G-Mac, is how much healthier is Georgia going to be after the bye week? Because goodness, if there's a team that needed it, they were one of them, with just trying to get people healthy and trying to get guys back on the field. But you look at this Florida team, and now all of a sudden here comes DJ Lagway, who is your starting quarterback. He has 9 passes completed of 30 yards or more down the field in the air. That's second in the FBS, second most in college football on 86 attempts on the season. So if there's something he can do, it's push the ball down the field. I feel like Elijah Badger has really come into his own. He's become a real weapon. Chimere Dike has become into his own. Like, he's become a weapon. We knew what Eugene Wilson was going to be able to do when he decided to play. And now you have this 2-headed monster at running back with Montrell Johnson, Jaden Ball, and the offensive line's looking a little bit better. So can Florida do enough offensively, Greg, to keep this thing close in the fourth quarter?
They got to hit some shot plays. Here's the problem. Like, everyone's like, oh, you just got to take your shots. I think if you can get one-on-ones with Georgia's DBs downfield, like, you got a real good chance. You got to block them. I mean, that's the problem. Like, do you think their tackles?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you think it's going to take these receivers, even though they got some explosive capabilities, it's going to take them 2.5, 3 seconds to get 30 yards downfield. So how long can you hold up? I think you got to move the pocket. You got to go, heavy full cell play action and get 8-man protections, and you got 2 receivers out in the route, and you're good to go. I think you'll see some counter protections where you're just changing the look for the edge rushers. I mean, I think you got to take your shots on first and second down, because if you're in just a traditional drop back, you're in trouble.
I would agree. All right, so defensively as well, now you have a couple of guys up front that look like they can be problematic. Specifically, this guy for the Florida Gators, who you think might be a bit of an issue out on the edge.
They put you in at fullback. You know your assignment. You know your job. It's coming down to, hey, Jack, all right, we need you to blow up the edge. Okay, I do that pretty well on defense, so I can do that pretty well on offense too. So, I look forward to putting my face into someone and running through someone. I'm being honest. I love contact. At the end of the day, you watch the best edges in the NFL. You watch the best edges in college football. The best edges are ones that set edges and set edges with violence. I always like to say it's better to be the hammer than the nail, because if you're the nail, you're going to be the one that's getting hurt. But if you're the hammer, you ain't going to feel nothing. So, when I come through there, it's a mentality that I'm going to run through your face and you're going to have to stop me. And, hurts them a lot more than it hurts me. It's fun.
I think we would all agree.
Right, Cole
that,
has a new favorite player.
We could all win a lot of games with 11 Jack Pyburns right now. Just like we'll figure out a way to get it done.
Who's Cole's favorite player? Oh, we just found him.
Might be mine too.
It's funny that my 7-year-old has asked me 100 times who my favorite player is in the NFL, and I say Quentin Nelson every time, and he still has no idea who he is or what he does or like what. Like, he just moves on to the next. He's like, whatever, Dad. I don't even know what that is, what that means. No, but it's, I mean, a guy who's fun to watch play and getting some run, doing some different things now. But it's not just him. Like TJ Searcy's done some good things, Greg. Cam Jackson, obviously, inside can be a problem. Caleb Banks can be problematic. Tyreek Sapp, like he flashes occasionally. And I still think Shamar James has played great football this year. Then you get George Gums off the edge. Keep in mind, these tackles do not protect very well in one-on-ones. So you get George Gums, the big, long, athletic bender off the outside. You just heard Jack Pyburn. You can get him off the edge. Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks can move out there. But you got to slow ATN down first. This goes back to what you talked about with Auburn Vanderbilt, Greg. If Florida can get Georgia in consistent third and longs, even maybe third and second and longs, that's how they stay in this game. Because I think they can affect the quarterback if they do that. They're not just going to cover, but we have seen teams get to Carson Beck this year. We have seen Carson Beck make really bad mistakes at times this year. That's what Florida has to do, in my opinion, to have a chance to win this game or even be competitive in this game.
Yeah, the good news is, if you're a Georgia fan, is that Carson Beck, after the bye week last year, really cleaned up his decision-making, and they got to take some of the pressure off. They're just dropping back too often. Last year, after the bye week versus before the bye week. Before the bye week, the average 34 dropbacks a game. 34 passes attempts a game. After the bye week, 26 attempts. Like, he needs to live in the mid-20s, not in the mid-30s. So hopefully this has allowed them to kind of refresh what they have going on the offensive line, and hopefully they'll be better running the football, because I like Carson Beck a lot. I think he's a super talented kid. I think he's searching a bit right now and has been all season. So maybe this bye week is exactly what he needed to kind of get back to playing high-level football, because he hasn't really done it all season, and he feels like he's due. But I don't know, man. I mean, I think this is one where they're going to have to run the football and commit to it and take some of the pressure off of them down the stretch.
Anybody going Florida here?
No. To cover, maybe.
You'll take them to cover?
I think so.
They keep it within 14.5.
Even though Florida's not great
cover
against the run, Georgia hasn't been great running the ball. So something's going to give there. And I think Florida can keep it close enough within a couple scores to where final score will be like 31, 21, something like that.
My only concern is that late in the Texas game, it felt like they finally said, all right, we are going to run the football. And it started to work a little bit, and that's a pretty good front. Now Texas was in a bit of a bind in how they had to defend it, so I'll understand that part of it. But if they have sort of rededicated themselves to it through the bye week, maybe they find a way to get it done. But I'm with you too. I do think Florida keeps it within the number. I don't think they can pull off the upset. I mean, it would take a monstrous DJ Lagway performance to be able to do that. And I just don't think, like Greg said, I don't think Georgia allows that, because those throws are not quick throws, and your offensive line might be better, but they're not great. And this is a great pass rush unit. So that just doesn't feel like it's going to take place. Damien, you say neither. You say Georgia gets to win and covers.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be close, maybe within 10 points going into the fourth quarter, but Georgia adds a little bit more there at the end. I think they get a touchdown, beat them by 17.
Okay. All right, so you think Florida keeps within the number, right, Greg?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so what we'll do when we come back, we'll switch it up just a little bit. We will get our Super Sofa games of the week in. We still have to talk A&M South Carolina. Do we dare talk Kentucky, Tennessee? And a couple of others that we need to mention before we get out for the week. We'll do that right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. It is 9:38 a.m. Friday, November 1st, right here on Jocks 94.5. Always listen online, jocksfm.com. Watch the show live on YouTube every day by searching Jocks 945.
B-Dry has been serving customers here in the community for 60 years, and they're going to continue to make sure that things are taken care of even after they finish the job. It's the largest waterproofing company in the country, but what I love is, you have a life of the structure warranty when you sign up with B-Dry. You can go and check them out online at bdryalabama.com. You're also going to get 12 months interest-free. That's 12 months interest-free and no payments for 12 months. Things will be taken care of without having to pay a ton of money up front right now. So call them today at 942-1976, or you can visit bdryalabama.com.
All right, let's get to our TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the Weekend. You guys know about TD's Fine Furniture, over 200 brands of furniture, more than a football field-sized showroom and warehouse. They buy in bulk to pass the savings along to you at TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. We give you one game that we would watch if that's the only option that we had. The easy one here is Ohio State, Penn State. Back to the conversation I just had with John. That will not be my selection because ultimately I'm not sure if it matters. I feel like both these teams are sitting pretty to be able to get into the playoff right now. Would Ohio State be on the brink of not making it if they drop this game? Yes, of course, but not out by any stretch of the imagination. There are just other games that I feel like have more things about both teams that I need to learn, that I'm a little bit uncertain about, and maybe just more interested about how they're going to go and how they're going to be decided. This was one of the tougher games for me since we've been doing this segment this year. And maybe this is a little bit of homer in me. I'm going to be honest, Ole Miss Arkansas almost made the cut for me for this one because I'm really interested to see how that one plays out, and I have a feeling how it's going to go. But I'm still going to go Vandy Auburn. Like the Diego Pavia demons for Hugh Freeze. Can he exercise those? This Auburn offense, have they figured itself out? Is that offensive line going to be able to recreate what they did last week? Can Peyton Thorne continue to protect the football? Can some of those edge defenders cause the problems for Pavia and that option offense the way that we think they can? And do Cedric Alexander, Diego Pavia get going for offensively for Vanderbilt? Do you have a veteran group of safeties and linebackers that make plays and make life difficult for the Auburn offense? I just think that there's so many ways that this one could go. Jordan-Hare Stadium, yes, but it's early. Is it going to be a crazy environment? Don't really know. I feel like it could be pretty good. So Vandy Auburn for me is actually my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the weekend. Wow,
look at you. The whoop, whoop,
all of it.
Switcheroo. Listed 7 games and then chose that one at the end. I loved it. I'm gonna go with mine. A little home cooking, a little self promotion. Not really intentional. I really am curious. I mean, this A&M team has been a team I haven't seen yet this year. I just want to see how physical they are. They look on tape to be among the more physical teams in the sport. I think they're good. I really do. I think they're a good football team. I don't know if I'm willing to put them, top 6 or 7 in the country just yet. So I'll be curious to see how they handle this pass rush. I'd be curious to see how they handle the athleticism of South Carolina. I think South Carolina's lunch pail defense. They're really good at all 3 levels. I think their safeties are super physical. So I'm pretty optimistic about South Carolina making this thing super interesting. And then on the other side, I think A&M's defense is amazing. Front 7 defensively is awesome. Lenore Sellers, I think, has struggled at times this year against good front 7s. They take a lot of sacks. So I think it's a good on good matchup, man, but it's really a line of scrimmage game that could be pretty low scoring. It could feel like a pitcher's duel. So I'm going A&M South Carolina as my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the weekend.
All right, Damian?
I'm actually going with the 11 o'clock kickoff, Ole Miss and Arkansas. You realize Ole Miss hasn't beaten Arkansas in Fayetteville since 2018?
It's wild.
It's crazy.
Been a weird series.
It is, man. And I think Arkansas right now can really play spoiler and eliminate all hope for Ole Miss as far as sneaking into the playoffs with 2 losses. But you get your third one, you're pretty much done. And I think it's going to be a competitive matchup. So I'm going Ole Miss and Arkansas, 11 o'clock on ESPN, fresh out of College Game Day for my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the weekend.
Can't argue with it. It's definitely one that I was considering as well. John?
It's going to seem weird, but I'm going with the ranked on ranked matchup. No, not the Ohio State, Penn State one, because like Cole, I do think while this will be enjoyable, ultimately probably may not matter because honestly, we very well could see it again. I'm going Pitt and SMU. 7 o'clock ACC Network, because the winner of this game even though they're both undefeated right now, they definitely have the fast track to make it not only to the ACC championship, but very well could just solidify a playoff spot if they don't mess around and catch an L. Pitt does have Clemson in a couple of weeks, so if they lose this one, they still have an opportunity to kind of get things right. But SMU gets this one. Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. That's it. So if they can get a game like this, there wouldn't be surprised if they should be able to get the rest of them. So an conference undefeated matchup, a surprising one. Wouldn't have thought that this late in the season, you're telling me that the ranked on ranked matchup sitting near the top of the ACC standings will be Pitt and SMU. Very surprising. I think it'll be a very good game. It's going to be Pitt, SMU, at 7 o'clock ACC Network.
Love it. Love all of those. All great picks, all great selections. TD's Fine Furniture. Super Sofa game of the weekend. You can get all that furniture right there in Summerton at TD's Fine Furniture. Over 200 brands, football field size showroom and warehouse. They buy in bulk. They pass those savings to you at TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. I'm telling you, between Texas A&M, South Carolina, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Auburn, Vandy, even Georgia, Florida, I think there's some interesting aspects too. We feel pretty comfortable Georgia actually wins that game, but it's a massive weekend of college football, G-Mac. Yeah. There's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, and it's a weekend with like a decent amount of bye weeks too. So there's a bunch of teams that are just kind of sitting, chilling. I'm expecting chaos this weekend. I'm thinking we're going to have some upsets. I'm thinking we're going to have some big numbers covered. I think we're going to have some teams that are on the ropes that we don't anticipate being on the ropes. Like I think Clemson could have their hands full. I think Miami could have their hands full. Wouldn't surprise me if Georgia has their hands full. I think we're going to have some chaos this weekend. So just buckle up and be ready.
All right. You got to catch a flight. Have a great weekend. Have a great call, G-Mac. We'll catch up with you Monday.
All right, fellas. We'll see you guys Monday. Enjoy the historically great, incredible, never seen anything so significantly one-sided in the Bad Box Score of the day.
We will.
You can call in if you want now when you participate.
Oh, I'm going to be listening in the car. I just want to know how historically significant it's going to be. Baby. We got an all-timer. Well, we got an all-timer today.
You and everyone else will hear it next right here on McElroy and Kublik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Before we get into our bad box score of the day, we mentioned Florida, Georgia coming up this weekend. Pretty massive matchup, 9:49 a.m. Friday, November 1st. We talked about turnovers. Billy Napier said something that has to happen, but where it starts needs to be somewhere other than the actual game.
Well, we talk about it every day. Ultimately, you get what you emphasize. I think the big challenge is, hey, look, guys, if we want takeaways to show up on game day, then we have to put takeaway behavior off film. We have to do it in a practice setting, and there should not be a play in practice where we don't put takeaway behavior on tape. So I think we got to continue to attack the ball. Obviously, a lot of the turnovers have to do with the quarterback. We all understand that. So I think the rush and the coverage are working better together. We're covering them better, and certainly we've been able to rush and affect the passer a little bit better. So, we're still trying to create more fumbles. We want to, continue to work on punching it out, ripping it out, uppercutting the ball out. Got to keep attacking the ball. We got to continue to work on affecting the quarterback.
2:30 on ABC, you will get 4-3 Florida at number 2, 6-1 Georgia. Kirby Smart says he's also seen Florida improve this year.
They have tremendous size. They have length. They've controlled the run game at a really high clip, meaning when it's hard to run the ball on people, it's really hard to be successful on third down. Forces you into passing situations, which sometimes get tough. But they're tackling better. They've played, I guess, complementary football is the right word, at a high clip. They've got more tackles for a loss and more turnovers in the last 3 to 4 weeks.
All right, so that's Kirby Smart discussing Florida, Georgia coming up this weekend. Let's get to our bad box scores of the day.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
Intentional grounding, offense number 7. It's a 10-yard penalty. I'm talking to America here, excuse me.
That's the game.
Now, part of this historical significance is going back to where this segment started and a part of how things first got going with bad box score of the day. So we will go historically traditional with our first score, and that is the Tennessee Lady
Volunteers
taking on the Carson Newman.
They are the Johnnies.
Are they the Patriots?
Excuse me? The Johnnies?
Yeah.
They're the Eagles.
Oh.
Eagles.
I heard Carson, so I reverted.
Lady Vols got the win 135-49 last
night. God almighty. I wasn't ready for that one.
Tennessee Lady Vols are back.
Yeah.
31-8 after one.
Okay.
They're outscored 33-15 in the second, 41-17 in the third, 30-9 in the fourth.
Right. Good coach. Okay.
Coach Caldwell.
Carson Newman shot 20 of 54 from the floor. Actually, 8 of 21 from three.
Okay.
I mean, you feel like it could have been a lot worse. They did have 4 free throws, freebies. They made 1.
Okay.
They were.
That's an issue.
Carson Badman, more like it.
Out rebounded in the game, 47-32. Not as bad as
so they hustled.
Quite imagine.
Right. Some effort.
Yeah. So you're probably wondering, like, where was the problem? Well, Tennessee had 30 steals in the game.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
That is definitely a problem.
Tennessee also shot the basketball 94 times.
Shoot more, score more.
They were 49 of 94. 19 of 48 from 3, 18 of 25 from the free throw line.
Just getting it done.
So turned it over and took advantage by putting up a lot of shots in this game. They had 6 players in double figures, the Lady Vols did. So, yeah, that is a throwback bad box score of the day. Now, a historically significant bad box score of the day, mainly for our mascots that I will present to you in junior college football, the Lewisburg College.
They're the Lakers?
They're not.
No, they are the Minutemen.
They are the Hurricanes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Now, in also historically relevant bad box score of the day news, they took on the Brevard College junior varsity.
Oh, okay. Hold on. All right.
Let's
see. Here was the Hurricanes. Then it was
They're the Tornadoes.
No, they're the
They are the Tornadoes.
Ooh.
Let's go.
Wow.
Not sure we've ever had a hurricane tornado game before,
No.
but here we are.
Miami's never played Iowa State?
That would be a cyclone.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But nonetheless, this game, as you could imagine, with a varsity versus a junior varsity, is 0.